Welcome to Rick Rack Ruby. I'm Laura Cluvo. I had an inquiry from a friend on Facebook asking to clarify the way that the pocket trim was applied to the Altitude Pullover. I told her I had a video tutorial, but then when I watched it, I realized it wasn't quite as clear as it could have been. So I've created a tutorial just for anyone who wants some clarification on how exactly I applied the pocket trim to my Altitude pullover. I apologize for not making it more clear in the first place, but this was kind of fun. Here's how I sew the pocket trim on the Altitude pullover. First of all, I cut my strips 1.25 inches wide. I also added about 1/2 inch to the length. That's not so that it's not as stretchy, but it's more because I want to be sure that the ends, like the end of the strip, is all the way to the top of the pocket. I pressed under 1/4 inch on one long edge of each strip. It's not the pressed edge, but the unpressed edge gets matched up to the edge of the pocket. I'm a pinner. You might be a clipper, but I'm a pinner, so I'm going to pin this all the way down the pocket edge. And instead of, I like to just kind of have it overlap a little bit, just to make sure I don't wind up short. So I'll pin this all the way and then I'll be back. Here I am all pinned, right sides together, matching the raw edges, and I'm going to stitch with my regular sewing machine along this edge. And I go to the edge of my presser foot, which I always think is 1/4 inch, but when I measure it, it's actually 3/8 inch. So I'll be sewing 3/8 inch in from the edge. I'm going to always stop with the needle down. I will carefully pull out the pins as I go. And I'm always kind of not stretching the fabric, but just making sure that it goes, when it goes under the needle, that this is flat. So I wouldn't send it under like that. I would just make sure it was like that. Hope that makes sense. So now I'm going to press it. First I'll press it flat, and then I'll wrap this around like this and fold this edge around to the back and pin it from the back. I know I'm going to be sewing from the top, so I will put my pins in like this so that I can just pull them out like this as I go. This is a size 6, a child size 6. I'm wrapping this around to the back, and ideally I would like to cover up that seam. I'm placing the center of my presser foot, so the little toe in the middle of the presser foot, right along the seam. And then I'm going to move my needle over 2 notches. I don't know how many millimeters that is. I have a Bernina, and on my Bernina, it's click, click. 2 clicks to the right. It's probably about 1/8 inch off center. So I'll move it 1/8 inch to the right, and then when I stitch, I'm just going to, let the center of my presser foot go right along the edge of the seam. And since the needle's 1/8 inch to the right, it's going to hopefully catch this edge as we go. And there we go. A nice top stitched edge. And then on the back, it's also nicely finished. I'm going to do the second side, the second edge here, and then I'll show you the real beauty of this technique, which is sewing this to the front of the shirt. This is a very nice, neat way to sew it to the front of the shirt. But first, I will sew this edge here, just like this one. Here we go, both sides are done. The edges are nice and smooth, everything's laying flat. There's a top stitching about 1/8 of an inch in from the seam. And then on the back, the top stitching is pretty nice. Now, here's my front. I'm going to align this and pin it. And then on the pattern, there is an indication that tells me where the pocket is supposed to begin. Right here. Right here. So I'm going to pin this pocket along here down to the mark, and then along here and here and here, along these three, I'm going to baste. I'm pinned along here and I'm going to baste that. And I'm also pinned along here, so I'm going to baste this as well. My basting is complete, and now I'm going to sew the outside edge of the pocket trim. And I'm going to sew it to the mark, to the pocket mark right here on both sides. So I'll sew from the top all the way down to here. And then you can see that the actual pocket has a nice finished edge on the inside. There's no raw edges. And then this part of the pocket edge will have two parallel rows of stitching, nice and neat up until here on both sides. And I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch in from this outer edge. Stop right here. Okay, the first side is done. Here's the opening for the pocket. Here's the back. And you might wonder if this has any stretch after sewing it, and it has plenty of stretch. Do not worry about that. Here you can see the 2 rows of stitching along the pocket trim. Now I'm going to do this side. Okay, both sides are done. I have nice channels and nice pocket openings and a nice finish on the inside. And now I will just continue to make my size 6 Altitude Pullover. Okay, thank you for watching my tutorial. If you're enjoying my videos, please like, share, and subscribe.